We need to raise the standard and continue to raise the standard from the ground up.
Your past conditioning, your beliefs, you need to dump that and unlearn it and make room and opportunity for new stuff to come in.
If you're feeling that feeling at all within your gut, you need to go with it.
You have to have those people on your team who are willing to accept the change, because change is frustrating. Welcome to episode 26 of the Apps and Asphalt podcast. We're going to do something a little unorthodox to start this one off. Gabriel, he's behind the camera, but he's poured us tequila shots. And yeah, it's middle of the workday. Yeah, sometimes you need a little tequila to pick you up. So
On hump day.
So we're going to do this live.
Sometimes you gotta celebrate a good day just because.
Amen. So celebrating. Cheers, you guys. And we got David too.
Son.
All right, call Uber. It's leaving the office. Ugh. It never gets easier.
Yep.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Sir.
All right. We'll jump right into it. Actually, first, let's not jump into it. I want to start and just say to everyone who's been tuning in and all the messages and stuff that people send us, dude, it's freaking awesome. And, we send screenshots to our team, and it just shows all 12 of our listeners, it's actually helping them. But it's still cool that you guys are you guys value what we're putting out there. And, we're going meeting to meeting and running to and from the office, and we just got a busy ass day just like you guys, but we try to make time for it because we know it's helping you guys out a lot. So
It's more than 12, isn't it? You're always so modest and just, underselling it.
Well,
It's a lot more than that, but that's all right.
because you know what? Nobody likes fucking complainers. So that's why I'm like, all right, let's just undersell it. It is a lot, man, but we appreciate you guys, bottom line.
Definitely. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to get the messages. I like when you send the screenshots, and it's the stuff that you don't think people listen to that they do. Which is always really nice to hear.
When we first launched it, we never knew. We didn't really know how it was going to go. And, sometimes it's a little tricky coming up with topics because there's only so much. But we're going to, go layers deep with this thing, man. So, all right, I'm going to move my chair. But what we're going to talk about today, we're going to give you guys a lot more, meat and potatoes of the biz, and it's something that I feel like everyone can relate to. And so we'll call this episode, Obstacles in Operations.
You're always so good with the names.
Kind of alliteration a little bit.
Yeah.
So obstacles in operations is, if you guys, as you guys know, in my opinion, selling the job is the easy part. The sell doesn't actually happen until you go and produce it, and that's really where the selling comes into play. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the obstacle comes in afterwards, and it's a sale beyond the initial estimate, the initial proposal. Operations, not just in our industry, but in every industry, is the functionality, the backbone to the structure, because you can sell as much as you want, but at the end of the day, you're not getting paid until the work has been produced, the goods have been produced. If you're in manufacturing, until your product has been produced. And so figuring out ways to streamline operations, make them quick, easy as possible, and eliminate potential errors or bottlenecks is always the best thing to think about when considering what is operations and what does it do and what do we need to avoid.
And who you have in those seats matters a lot.
Yes.
That's the complete other half of the business. There we go again. Every time we start a podcast, you guys start grinding away. Oh, well, we'll still push through it. So we wrote down on the whiteboard, you guys can't see it, but on the right, we have a couple different different talking points. So let's start with our favorite, scheduling. Zach's just laughing
God,
about
I
it.
love scheduling. There's so many different ways that people look at scheduling in our industry. I know sometimes the estimators sell it. It gets pushed to production. Production schedules everything. Estimator doesn't have a whole lot to do with it afterwards. Sometimes the estimator is the project manager. They're scheduling it for them. Sometimes it's a group, a collaborative thing. There's so many different ways to cut it up. Mm-hmm. But it is the key component to our industry.
Has to be, dude. And I think it's like the biggest challenge of our industry too, because with scheduling is so many different variables, which we'll dive into more of, but like your scheduling is live and it changes and it fluctuates, and it's a big puzzle, because our industry is a domino effect, especially if you do asphalt and concrete. We got a job that we contracted that has, curb and gutters, drain pans, some sidewalk work, some patching, milling, maybe a little paving, some seal coat. Like we sign deep projects that have every single service that we offer, and they all have to go in a certain order in order to be produced correctly. And so that really, it's like a very dependent kind of business. And so that's what makes it really challenging, is if seal coat crew is behind on a couple jobs and they're supposed to seal coat on the job that you just got done, patching, and now it's time to seal coat on Thursday, then you got to stripe it. It just pushes and affects everything else down the line. So I think that's a big thing that we're trying to figure out. And
it's an ongoing thing that will never be solved. I feel like. I think it's consistently playing Tetris with everything. And even when you have something set and it seems like everything is good to go, you could be 2 days before and you can find an efficiency or something that could change in the weather pattern or this or that changes what you had set for 2 weeks prior up to that point, or a month prior up to that point, no matter how long you've had it on the schedule. So it's a ongoing game of Tetris, especially if you're looking to grow. Yeah. If you're content with where you're at and you're just good pushing with what you have, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But we're at a point where we're consistently pushing the needle, and so we're playing with in-house crews, a group of select subcontractors that we really enjoy working with, that do good work, that do business the way we like them doing business. Mm-hmm. And so we're always just moving pieces nonstop.
Not to mention when you get the external factors, it's either like the subcontractors that you bring them on, and if they fall behind on a job and we had them scheduled to start and then we schedule all our services behind it, we've been in that situation plenty of times. The worst, I feel like, is the GCs, though, man. That's why they are always a thorn in our side. We have dates that are set up for them, and unfortunately, when you sign those kind of contracts, which we push back a lot on what we do sign, but a lot of them we're pretty much hosed and we're at their beck and call, which is why we've moved away a lot from them, because it tends to mess up our schedule quite a bit. So
You're right. Unless you have tons and tons of equipment that's sitting and you can mobilize it, stage it, leave it for, several days at a time without being used, it's really hard sometimes. We're not able to do that. I mean, we're not at a point where we want to have that type of shop overhead or equipment overhead. Mm-hmm. So that is very tough. It's difficult.
Yeah. What is your, so we've tried, you said earlier, like the different ways that you can schedule. It could be each estimator schedules all their stuff. Then you also said that like only operations and people inside of there schedule it. And then now it's more of a team collaborative effort, which we're trying out this year. What do you feel has been the most effective?
I think each one has been effective in its own way. I think what we're finding out right now is by scheduling collaboratively with all the superintendents, the estimators, operations,
accounting,
and everybody in there, we're figuring out we're billing stuff right on time, number one, which is really good. Getting everybody in there, kind of brainstorming and stuff. The hardship of it is you get everybody chirping, and meetings can get off topic and redirected in a direction that's, so you need to have somebody strong that's leading them that can redirect the meetings back over to the focal point of where we're at within the calendar, what we're looking for. So those are the hardships. I think we kind of have a hybrid though, because we do have the weekly scheduling meeting with everybody, and then stuff still changes from that point. There's stuff that, I mean, even right now, there's jobs that I've picked up personally, just because, and I'm basically scheduling them on my own with subcontractors. So I'll let scheduling know where it's at. I know it doesn't affect what they have going on, but I'm still putting it on the calendar. I'm moving stuff around. And I guess the whole reason behind that is just to be able to push some extra revenue through the funnel and just some extra points.
Especially making up this month, dude.
Exactly. We're playing catch up for sure with
Yeah.
all the rain. So
Rain has been a doozy for us. So,
yeah.
All right. Next one is a whole different ball game. So, doing HOA work.
Oh my gosh.
What are some ways that affects operations and scheduling? And
Oh my gosh. HOA work and multifamily are the hardest jobs to do. I think apartment complexes are definitely the hardest places to do business in, for sure. Nobody ever gets the notice. People are lazy. They don't want to read them. Stuff doesn't get moved. Whatever. Same thing with HOA work. Then you get people that are entitled, especially if you're in a nice place. You know, you're going to run into a bunch of different things. Scheduling HOA work, though, obviously it has to be Monday through Friday, which is nice for us. Weekends are bad. The hardest part with HOA is making sure that people have been notified, and then reconfirming that they have received notification that they either have a tow truck available to move people, or there's a plan in place or a clause in place for a change order for dormant time while your crews are sitting, because they will be sitting on those projects. There's like a 10 to 15% factor of production that just has to go into those bids because people don't move their cars on time.
Yeah.
You got guys sitting. So
your start time at 8 is more like 8:30 or 9, just no matter what.
yes,
As much as you can control it. And yeah, go ahead.
you have the best HOA stuff though. Hayden came in and just was ringing sales with HOA work.
Yeah,
But what was the one that you had? The huge Liquid Road project.
Oh,
You have to name drop, but
yeah.
gosh, man.
Yeah, it starts with an S. God. Yeah, that was it just depends on who's on the board
Yeah.
and what you're dealing with. But yeah, there's like some projects that you sign because they're a good size, and then you go into producing it and you're like, this was a mistake. And a lot of times you don't unearth like the problems that are going to happen until after the contract is signed, and then they want this, and this in order to produce it. And it, talk about a bottleneck, it messes up your schedule, it messes up how you guys should produce the work. So the more, there's an attorney here in Colorado called Frank Azar, and his is the strong arm. That's his kind of saying. The more you can Frank Azar that bad boy and like kind of let him know, like, in order for us to be the most efficient to get in and out, this is how we have to do it. Yeah, the HOA that you're talking about was literally straight uphill for a walk. These houses were like half acre, 3/4 acre lots. Like, and we had to line cones all up and down that bitch, and it was just a nightmare, man. It was horrible. But and then we've been on, like, another big one that we do work on quite a bit. We had one of our guys get actually like ran over by a lady who drove around our cones and ran over his foot or leg or whatever. So it gets crazy, but there is a lot of work you can do in HOAs, and there's a lot of contractors that don't even touch it.
That's where you're able to charge a premium for that type of work. Do include traffic control. I don't even include our internal traffic control anymore. Like I put a line item for traffic control as a whole, just because your guys are able to get in there, not have to worry about vehicles, and just get to producing.
Yep.
So if you guys don't have traffic control included in those type of bids, make sure you factor it in and then bump your production up, because you're going to get better production without them having to worry about vehicles and where they're going and all that stuff. So that helps a ton with HOA work.
Yeah, and I want to just kind of a tip that's worked for us better. It hasn't been flawless, but it's helped us out a lot when we were talking about communicating to the residents. Is we use Spot on Site to create phasing maps for the residents, so they know, like we'll even use the label as phase 1, June 6th through June 9th. All cars need to be moved on this date and time. And you hand that over or send that over to the property manager. They can create their own flyers and go send somebody out to go put these flyers on everybody's doors. Or you can even add an additional service or a fee that says, hey, we will post all the notices for you. So it's a good way to make up some extra points. It's not much, but it's another service that you can provide that's going to help you out. So It's more like on the sales side.
Yep. What I like to do too is, if you can find a good tow truck company that you can use to partner with, take that piece off the community manager's plate, because oftentimes they forget, and what you'll find out is, oh, I told them to be here, but they're not there, and chances are they probably forgot to tell them to be there.
Yeah.
Or, but if you could take that off their plate, get relocation fees figured out, and then tack on your 20-30% on the back of it, take that piece on for them, you guys can use that money to just kind of help along the way. Then you've got the tow truck company that you're already paired up with, ready to go, giving you good pricing, and you guys are able to continue to move stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The other portion to that is, with what you're saying with the phasing maps, is the guys are able to snapshot pictures of vehicles that are still sitting there within each phase, which is time stamped and dated through Spot on Site.
Yep.
Gives you a really easy way to get that money pushed through as a change order, because it's sitting right there in your assessment.
Yep.
So.
1,000%. That was bangers. And crazy homeowners, but we probably don't need to go into that. We've had our fair share.
Yeah.
All right. So communication from the field back to the office. I mean, we talk about the handoff a lot, but really training your foreman, your project managers, superintendents, whatever you call these guys, to give you a lot of information coming back. And it's hard because these guys are going balls to the wall, and they get done at, 6:00 at night, and they're tired and they want to go home. They still have to drive all the way across town, drop the equipment off, and drive home. So they get lazy and start to shortcut things. And what happens is that leads to, communication problems, and the estimators don't have time, and your estimators should not be sitting there on job sites all day. They should be scoping and selling jobs. That's it. And so training your guys, like your on-site crews, the importance of providing as much information back to the office is huge, more than just filling out the dailies. So.
Agreed. If you can get your field foremen, your superintendents to get some check-ins put into their phone as notifications to go off at certain times during the day, mid-morning, because from that point they've already got a little bit figured out, probably another one mid-afternoon, and then as they're wrapping up the project, that afternoon, it gives you a few ideas of a few touch points from the foreman to the super, or the foreman to the production manager, or super to production manager, where they're able to see and forecast, okay, tomorrow looks like it's on track. Yeah. Or, hey, these guys are smoking it. I'm going to send them over to the next job right now as soon as they finish early. So if you can train your field to just stay in communication and get some times where they just check in on a daily basis, our guys are pretty good with communication, but if I go back through, I'd grab every single person's phone and I would put in reminders every single day and just say, hey, you guys need to check in, and I want you guys talking about where you're at. What does tomorrow look like? And are we on track for what we need to do? And that goes for even the super back over to the foreman, letting them know, hey, your equipment's going to be sitting over there. Hey, this is what you need to be considering tomorrow when you go back this evening and load for tomorrow's job.
Yeah, like a 15-minute reminder
Yep.
every single day that hits them. That's all they got to do is stop. But, I mean, I get they go 100 miles an hour, and that small thing seems like inconvenient for them. But you teach them and you train them that, like, the preparation is what determines the success. Like, if you want to have a shitty day playing catch-up tomorrow, then keep doing what you're doing. But if you want to start going in and not having to, like, bank on when the problem's going to happen, prepare yourself, prepare your teams, prepare the crews.
Oh, yeah. And you go back to, man, when I was owner, operator, selling, producing, what a tough place to be in, gosh, I could go back and just feel the agony that you're going through when you're trying to get off a job to get to a place where you can get back to the office to get stuff loaded up for the following day, knowing that you've got bids to get done and everything else. There's a ton to be said for that. I know that's a very, very, very hard place to be in. But if you are in that place, you guys should let us know. I mean, those are the type of things that we'd love to help out with wherever we're able to and discuss kind of what options look like for you guys moving forward.
Figure out how to scale yourself. All right. Leveraging your superintendents in the chain of command. You want to start with that one?
Yeah. So leveraging your superintendents to really understand both sides of everything. They need to understand the money aspect, and then they need to understand the field aspect of what's realistic versus where we're at, and then helping them understand where their efficiencies could be. Maybe there's a closer dump site. Maybe for cleanup, instead of having your guys go clean it, they send someone in there with a broom to get all the heavy stuff out of the way ahead of time, so that way you're able to get better production. There's a bunch of different ways that you can leverage your supers, but those guys are really what are going to be your make or break on a lot of projects.
Yes. Just like, dude, yes. That's where I was going to go to this. Like, your superintendents, if you get a good superintendent, that person alone could increase your bottom line.
Guaranteed.
Because they understand, like you said, they understand the field and the producing aspect of it, but they also understand the budget side of it. And so their whole goal should be efficiency. Like, that's it. Finding closer dump sites, or figuring out how to get more, get material cheaper by pulling from a different plant, or negotiating. Like, that is such an important and overlooked position. And
people laugh at me sometimes. I'll tell the supers, I'm like, you need to go knock on some farmers' doors and ask them who wants millings, who wants dirt, who wants this or that. Because that's the stuff I would do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not afraid to go do it. And I would tell people, I'm like, you need to go knock on these doors. Like, it's out there. Post on Craigslist, do whatever you need to do. But there are ways to figure out efficiencies on these projects. And it's the little things that make all the difference in the world.
Dude, if you got a good superintendent, like, pay him for it, because that person, in order to have the cojones to go knock on somebody's door like that, or to constantly be finding ways to win, will, like I said, it's going to pay dividends for you. So
Supers they're going to be expensive. So you guys have to realize it's an investment, but it's an investment back into your time. You're going to be paying on a very low end. This is probably somebody that you don't even want on hourly. You want this person on salary because they're on call all the time. I mean, that person is available around the clock for you, and probably 60 to 100 grand depending on where they're at. And, it can maybe even go up a little bit more just depending on where at within the United States they're living and all that stuff too. So
Some bonus incentives.
Put some bonus and incentives in there as well too.
Yeah. So we figured out, and I know there's a lot of our listeners that aren't in the position to hire supers, but it's something like you should keep on your radar for sure, especially if you're just starting out. But when you do get to that point, we realized that a big bottleneck that we had in the operations department was the chain of command for communication. So we were having the foreman, you think of a hierarchy, you got your foreman, where you got your laborers and your foreman, then your superintendent / project managers, and then your head of operations. The head of operations, the only phone calls he should be getting from your team is either from the estimators, from Zach, or from the superintendents. And what we ran into was people were skipping the hierarchy because we didn't clearly define it. And we were having foremen call all the way up to, all the way up to the head of operations. And they got a million things going on trying to get the schedules ready for the next day. And they're handling like daily job site issues. So that's how you can start building teams within your production side that's going to make a huge difference. And it's just small stuff like that people don't really think about that kind of sets you backwards.
Oh, yeah. So, for sure.
What do we got next? Seasonal awareness. This is a good one, too. Again, why did we choose to get into this space? I don't know where the hell you started an asphalt business.
I don't know, man. I should have been a doctor like my parents told me.
All right, so seasonal awareness. So some of you guys live like down in Florida or Cali. This might not apply to you, but the guys who are like us, like in Colorado, we really go hard from, I don't know, April through sometimes December, sometimes November, sometimes end of October. It's kind of all over the place. But as the seasons change, come with different problems. So like it's the beginning of the season now, right? And so the guys have been off work for the whole pretty much winter and off season. And so they're ready to come back and work. They want to make some money and get their hours in. But what do you do if it rains every freaking day, like what we're going through? And, you don't want to lose them because if you don't have fortunately we have good guys. I don't think anyone's jumped ship just to get that. But we've been there before of like kind of have a slow start or contracts don't come in as fast as we wanted to. And like guys will jump ship right off the bat because they get scared. So that's like an early season problem.
Yep. What you need to train your supers to do is, number one, keep them in the loop of having them checked in with production manager and then also estimating so they know what's coming down the pipeline. Number two, they gotta fill their crew in. They need to be hosting meetings. They should be having meetings. I tried to tell our teams to urge their teams below them, hey, you guys need to have meetings. You guys need to talk about what's coming up. You guys need to talk about what does this look like, what the weather's holding, a bunch of different things. But seasonal awareness is really, really important, especially when you're trying to retain your guys. I mean, that's your crew. And if you lose guys, chances are there's probably a lack of communication somewhere along the way. They feel some uncertainty and they have families to take care of, so they're gonna split and go somewhere else. They're not getting enough communication. So keep in touch with your guys. Let them know what's coming down the pipeline. There's a ton of different things from a seasonal aspect that we could dive into, from like what materials to put down to, efficiencies that we look at or try to identify during those times. But it's a huge piece of our business.
The business, or like towards the end of the season, like you got shorter days, sun goes down a lot quicker, gets colder, so you start later. Like if you're seal coating, you got to start later, wait till it warms up enough. So
relays, you got to wait for the tack to break.
Yep. It's a big freaking puzzle, man.
It's a big puzzle.
All right, seasonal awareness. Oh, this is a good one too, and sometimes it gets hard, and I think we all are guilty of this just because we have so much demand. But, your crews are not machines, they're people. So they get tired. Work gets sloppy. Work gets sloppy, your customers are unhappy, and then it creates warranty work. So finding a quote-unquote balance of pushing these guys enough, but giving these guys enough rest to where they can, recover properly so they're still putting out good work is very hard because, like I said, you got a short time window of when we got to get it in and get as much work done as we can. But you will start to see, these long weeks, long hour weeks, and towards, middle to late season, these guys just kind of falling off and everyone's ready for a break. And that's a hard thing to kind of figure out and how to manage that, because you constantly want to push, but you don't want to run these guys into the ground. So what are some kind of like momentum builders or things that people can do to help like relight a spark? Because sometimes it only takes like a day just for them to have a recovery day or something.
I love this question because growing up working on all these crews, you know exactly what that's like. And so people who have grown up and then they've worked in this industry, or sometimes they're, doing a little bit of everything. We've realized and we know our crews are really effective between 50 to 60 hours. Anything beyond that, production drops a ton. So not that we obviously would like to try to minimize as much overtime as possible, but not even necessarily from a money standpoint. It's a production and productive standpoint. So these guys will get mentally and physically burned out. And so what do? You got to look at what can they actually be, what can actually happen during those hours throughout the week. These guys, they'll clock in maybe 2,300 hours for the entire year. 22 to 2,300 hours throughout the year. But out of that, they're only producing maybe 1,400 to 1,500 hours throughout the year, right? So those are the times that they're actually making money for you. How do you maximize those hours to be the most effective for you guys? The guys are going to need the acknowledgement, I think, along the way is more important than anything else. Money is always a driver, but it's not as much as just letting them know you see them, you acknowledge them, you appreciate the hard work that they're putting in. Yeah. Those little things, even, reciprocated back and forth to whoever within your organization, is enough to really drive them, letting them know you're kind of thinking of them, bringing some water, having some meetings, empathizing with them. And then, fall is the hardest. Everybody's tired. Days are changing. Though that's like championship round right there.
That is right there, yeah. Raised on blacktop, the playoffs right there.
When they came out with that, I was like, man, that's so true.
Yeah,
it's that's what separates companies.
That's it, baby. And hopefully Nuggets, speaking of, can pull it off. But they're tired, they're burnt out. So
yep.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. But yeah, you'll find your productive windows of when your crews are killing it and when they're not. Even with Spot on Site, like our developers have a certain amount of hours that they hit. Like it's kind of the same thing, 40 to 60. Anything above that, their production slows down. They get sloppy. There's a lot more errors and bugs, and so it's pretty interesting watching that.
Yeah.
And also, it's like the 90 days. Like it's kind of the quarterly lags is what everyone hits. Even your office too. Every 90 days, people go through cycles of when they lose the motivation or they just need kind of like a reset. So there's plenty of things that you guys can do, even like an offsite day that can help reset it. So, or take shots in the office one day.
Hey,
who knows?
Close a bunch of deals. That's what happens.
Amen. Yeah, we had a good week this week.
Told him, you want to pull me out of retirement? I'll show you.
If y'all want to play games, then all right.
Hey, I don't just talk about this. Yeah, I'm about this.
Yeah, the sales guy's getting a little too cocky, so we had to come out of retirement. All right, one that was just brought up too right before is emergency repairs. So Gabriel he runs our operations, and he's really good at this, but he does a lot of work for, some of our customers that use GCs on other parts of it. But for instance, there was a blowout at the stadium, and the guy from the GC needs the patch repaired like tomorrow or in 2 days. And it's like kind of a balance because you want to help out the stadium because they're such good customers, but at the same time, it's going to just mess everything else up on the schedule.
Or it can.
Yep. And so learning what to say yes, what to say no to is kind of a fine line. And I think it just depends on what customer you want to make strides with and what customers you kind of like, this is really just more helping them out, because it is a two-way street, man. Like they can't have your customers constantly beating you up and being at their beck and call, because you guys got your own stuff to do. So, emergency repairs, they can put a lot of stress on you, because when they call in to need to get it repaired, you can hear it in their voice, and naturally you empathize with them, and you're like, oh shit, how can we make this work for them? But a lot of times it's just really not the best thing to do for you and your company.
I agree. Number one, don't ever put a number to an emergency repair over the phone, ever. Chances are you're going to undercut yourself, you're not going to make any money, and then you're really not doing anybody favors, because you're miserable that you're out there. You're probably going to figure out a way to get out of there quicker. Just take the time, go back, think about it, let them know you need to really look at things to see if you can even make it work. You need to tack on a premium, and then the premium is for a few things. Number one, if you do have to switch around the schedule, there's an admin fee that goes along with that. That is kind of built into that premium. Number two, if for some reason your crew's not able to tackle it and you've got an alliance of people, contractors that are able to help you accomplish these type of things, you're able to have the money built in right off the bat, still make some good money.
Yeah.
And so those are the type of things that we need to kind of consider with emergency repairs. The GCs that are always needing emergency repairs, whether it's streets or whatever, chances are you probably don't really want to be doing that type of work with those type of companies, especially if it is street work or something that has to do with a county or government, because these companies need to be thinking that far ahead of time. And if they're not doing that in the field, they're probably a mess in the back office, which is going to be a pain in the ass for you guys to collect your money. And you're really going to wish that you didn't do the job to begin with. So make sure it's for a good client or somebody that you need to get reeled in that will be a good client that's been a target for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I called to check in on one of our SOS customers, and he's a project manager for him. And I was checking in when he answered the phone. He's breathing all hard and shit. And I hear the beep, beep, beep. And he's telling trucks to back up, whistling. And I'm like, dude, I'll call you later. And I was like, what the hell's going on, though? He goes, dude, our customer called us, and they run a huge, franchise of restaurants. And I guess the GC walked off the job. So like the VP of that company called them to come in and said, hey, if you guys come do this and take care of it, like we'll be forever indebted to you guys. And so he's like, all right, done. He walked into just a shit show, and they had like subgrade repairs. Like the base was supposed to be prepped, so they're just going to pave it. It was like 3,000 tons and go. Dude, he told me that they've had to dropped 1,000 tons like in the first 2 days, and all of it ended up failing.
Oh my God.
So he had to pull 1,000 tons out of subgrade repair, and that's just of asphalt.
Oh my gosh.
And so
giving me anxiety.
Right. So he was reading all hard and stuff. I just started laughing because we've been there, done that. And, but he was like, dude, I've never seen so much money just wasted in my entire life. He goes, I wish, like, no matter what, at the end of this project, however much money we make or we've spent on it or whatever revenue we bring in is not worth it.
Oh my gosh.
But just another show, like, you have to really kind of step out of the emotion when these opportunities come up and really kind of think, okay, what's like worst case scenario? What could I really be running into? At least go see it before you say yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Man.
Poor dude. So I think, but again, that pushed their schedule back. They were supposed to be there a week, and it was like another 2 weeks worth of work. So, I mean, 3 weeks gone. And same thing, like we said, there's only a certain amount of weeks in the year that we can get work done. So could be on other jobs, producing and knocking them out. So I couldn't imagine what he's trying to deal with. So I was like, all right, man, well, I'll let you go. There's nothing you can say or do in those
There's
situations.
nothing you can say or do, man. That is crazy.
Yeah,
Wow.
poor dude. So,
Yep.
but that's kind of through our list. We wanted to dive into operations problems because that's a whole different part, and it's not a sexy conversation, but it's probably one of the biggest parts of the business. You know, a lot of people who kind of take their eyes off of stuff that's not directly tied to money, like sales, is more sexy to talk about because it's directly making money, but really without the production, having a solid production team, including, you know, from your operations manager all the way down to your foreman and laborers, like your company doesn't exist.
And that makes selling easier, man.
Yeah.
It makes selling so much easier. That is sexy when you can go back and you can produce or, you know, outperform what the salesman is selling. So
Yep, you can win.
Shoot to aim for something along those lines.
Yeah, you can win customer loyalty just
Yep.
based on the way you produce a job or the way you take care of problems, and that all just falls on your team. So
Amen.
I'm gonna bring it up again. The 8-figure paving playbook. We brought this up because one of our customers has a operations issue where they don't have a good leader to run their crew. And so it kind of just shows like the inefficiencies that come off of one person. But if you guys, I know it's middle of the season, but if you guys want to learn how to scale your business and take all of these problems and these challenges and kind of piece it together, this is exactly why we created this. I mean, this dude over here, he's got the knowledge to run the business side of it, which a lot of guys jump into the paving business because they're good at paving, or they create a concrete business because they're good at pouring concrete. But just because you're skilled at it doesn't mean you know how to actually run the business. And so
That's a good point.
Zach's got, I mean, you really dive into the costing, the estimating, the budgeting portion of it. So you guys run this actually like a business and not like just a typical contractor who doesn't even know how much money they make. So we're still taking guys here for the 8-figure paving playbook. It's never the wrong time to start, even though it seems difficult, but we want the right companies that are coming in that are serious about it. And because we put a lot of time and effort into that, and we literally give you guys the gold, and we dive even more into what we talk about here. And so if you guys are interested, check us out. It's on our Instagram profile. I'll try to post the links more so you guys have access to it, but you can schedule an interview with myself or with Zach, and we'll see if you're the right fit for it, and then we can move forward and change the game for you.
That's right.
So that's episode 26 of the Apps and Asphalt podcast. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.
Right on.